customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DiJulius. Today, John talks with Dr. David Moffet and his wife, Jayne Bandy, on how they have built the ultimate patient experience. Dr. Moffet is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and today he and Jayne are also customer experience coaches who help transform the experience businesses deliver. In this episode, you'll learn about the obsession Dr. Moffet has with ongoing learning to become the best at anything he does, how they invented the ultimate patient experience, disrupted the dental industry, sold their dental practice, and how as CX coaches, they're helping other businesses around the world do the same. Now here's your host, John DiJulius.
Hello, revolutionaries, and welcome to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I am John DiJulius, Chief Revolution Officer of the DiJulius Group, and I am so delighted to have longtime friends, clients, coaches. There's so much to me. Dr. David Moffet and his brilliant and beautiful wife, Jayne Bandy, from the Down Under, Australia. Welcome, Dr. Dave and Jayne.
Hey, John. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, John. Nice to be here.
And where does this podcast find you guys today? Sydney?
No, we moved out of Sydney just on 3 years ago now. 9 years ago, we bought a second house out in the country, 2 hours from Sydney. And 6 years after buying that, 3 years ago, we decided to sell our Sydney home and move to the country full time. And at the moment, we're actually not even in our house because our house is being extended and renovated. So we're actually house sitting in somebody else's house. So for those who won't see the video, John, that's not our dog and those aren't our family behind it. but
we're the ultimate nomads.
Well, yeah, we're nomads, and we've still got 4 more months of house sitting to find. We've got to find other places to live now because the lady wants her house back. Our friend wants her house back. So.
To show you, how different our worlds are, right? Right now, as we're recording this in February of 2022, I'm in Cleveland. School and all businesses have been shut down. It's a whiteout, iced out there, and it is close to dinner time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on, I don't know what day it is, Thursday. Tell me about what your world looks like. It's Friday, I think. What time?
It's Friday morning, just gone 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. What's the weather?
It's where we are. It's cool. It was about 50 in your language this morning for my walk. Normally it's around 55, 60. So it was a little bit cool. And we're heading towards the end of summer, but Sydney and New South Wales hasn't really had a summer. We've had a lot of rain this year, which is good. For us as farmers, we can grow grass for our cattle to eat. So rain is good, but just not to walk in or to exercise in. But I've got clients in Michigan, and they were warning their customers about a snowstorm. That was Wednesday night. I think Wednesday the snow was coming. Was that right?
And it hasn't stopped. But the East, Pennsylvania, we're all getting, the kids won't have school tomorrow. Businesses will be shut down. So you're in a good place. So I'm so excited to have you both. And Doc, you're going to have to remind me how far this goes back, our relationship. And I think it's a very unique story. But the reason why I want to have you both on the podcast, because there's so much our listeners can learn from you. Not only how you both took a dental practice and just revolutionized it, sold it, wrote a best-selling book about it, and then have become coaches and you're helping other businesses all over the world do the same, both in the medical industry and outside of it. So much I want to unpack here. But let's start in the beginning, Doc, because our story of you and me meeting, and you never would see me when it was convenient for you. You'd always get on a plane and drive or fly. Is really funny. So do you remember what year that was?
Yeah, John, that was 2010, and I was coming to Chicago every quarter for a dental practice mastermind, dental owners in a group coaching setting. And the coach of that group, Ed O'Keefe, who wasn't a dentist, used to bring in somebody non-dental as a speaker for the Saturday morning. So my routine for those meetings was leave Sydney Thursday lunchtime on a plane, fly to Chicago, land Thursday night, Friday all day in coaching with Ed, Friday night there, Saturday morning, half day coaching, jump on a plane, fly home, lose Sunday on the crossing the date line, and go back to work Monday. So Thursday to Monday, I would spend 48 hours on the ground in Chicago and 48 hours, 24 hours getting there and 24 hours getting back, and just bang, straight drilling teeth Monday morning. So
which first demonstrates your amazing commitment to your education. And I remember that group. Obviously, I spoke for it, and it was elite dental practices, and, so your commitment. But yeah, I don't believe you knew who I was. You just probably trusted Mr. O'Keefe that he was going to bring in good talent. So I think I was the Saturday speaker. Is that correct?
That's correct. So yeah, it was that Saturday morning. But the funny thing was, you had flown from Cleveland to Chicago to present, and then you were flying on to San Francisco and then to Australia. And I was flying home that afternoon via San Francisco, but I was flying American. I think you were flying United. I was flying American and Qantas, and you were flying.
Yeah, so we were both leaving, headed to Australia. And I was going to do my first tour there, where someone had booked me in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And I remember meeting you and saying, oh my gosh, it could have saved you a trip, and you could have stayed in Australia and saw me next week. And so we flew back, and I said, I asked you where you're from, and you said Sydney. I said, well, I'll be there Wednesday. But you couldn't come and see me when I was in Sydney because you were booked with patients. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you got back on a plane and flew from Sydney to Brisbane Brisbane to see me again. So even when I was in your backyard, you chose to get on a plane.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I was reading your book. I bought your book from you in Chicago, and I was reading it on the way home. And I said to Jayne, I said, I've got to go and see this guy speak. I can't cancel this day, but I'll go up on this day. And so that morning in Brisbane, after the first session, when we broke for morning tea, I rang Jayne and I said, this guy's just taught me our language. We need to go. You'd already mentioned that you did a 4-day course in Cleveland. I said, we need to plan to go back to Cleveland in July and do this 4-day customer service speakers training as well. And so that's what we did. And so it was in that July of 2010 that we came over.
Back to the States.
Back to Cleveland. Actually, we'd not been to Cleveland before. That was our first visit to Cleveland. And that was really funny because when we were boarding in LA to get to Cleveland, somebody said, why are you going to Cleveland?
Yeah.
And then they got us again at Cleveland Airport and said, what do you come to Cleveland for? Because they could hear that we weren't from Cleveland or from the US. But again, small world, we had a friend who we had worked with in dental remotely, Dr. Ron Arndt. And
he's from Northeast Ohio, a few miles outside of Cleveland.
Yeah, so we met him for the first time in person. He came and took us to dinner. We went to dinner with him the Monday night that we were there with you, and that then cemented our friendship. And so with Dr. Ron, we became very personal friends. And in fact, I recommended Dr. Ron to
and he attended the course and brought a bunch of other dentists.
Yes, there you go. So yeah, it speaks highly for the quality of what you deliver. I guess, as you said, my commitment to further education, but also, as you know, the cream rises to the top, and the camaraderie I have with Dr. Ron. In fact, I was just thinking of him this morning for some reason that I hadn't spoken to him for a while. I can just jump on the phone, and it's even though he's now retired from everything, I think he's in his fourth career. He's a grandparent now.
Yeah.
That's his career. But we can jump on the phone and have a chat about anything. And he used to say, if you've got a couple of days spare and you're flying around the US, come to Cleveland and stay with him. And I used to do that. I used to enjoy that. So, but
that all started a wonderful, now is a 12-year relationship with the three of us. And you've been to Cleveland more times you could probably count now. I've been to Australia multiple times. And when I come, you guys have been great hosts and have taken me to a great restaurant and all that. But so when you were had your dental practice back then, was your focus always on the patient experience? Like, how did that evolution come to then you built it, and wrote a book, How to Build the Dental Practice of Your Dreams Without Killing Yourself in less than 60 days. And then, you became so good at this that I asked you to speak, and you were one of our speakers at the Customer Service Revolution 8 years ago and won an award and got your own superhero bobblehead. So tell our listeners what your and Jayne's evolution was as a small business owner competing with all the other dentists. And you guys all do the same thing, right? The menus look the same. The websites look the same. What forced you, or what made you realize you had to make it the Ritz-Carltons of dental practice?
Well, John, I think we knew that we were doing something different. And in fact, when Jayne was a school teacher when I met her, and then she became a parent of our children. And when the children were old enough to find their own way home from school, Jayne started doing Parents Association at school. And I said, that's a waste of your talent. If you want to do something, come and be a concierge at my dental practice. That's a job description that never went in dentistry. Nobody had concierges. I said, we've got great people on the front office, but we need people to...
So this isn't a sexier name for a receptionist. You truly, it wasn't Jayne, I'm going to call you a concierge, but you're really going to book appointments, take people's credit cards. You really were creating a little position. Am I correct here with Jayne?
I just wanted Jayne to be the schmoozer, didn't I? Isn't that what I said?
I think, well, let's cut to the chase and get to the real story.
Yeah, right.
I think what was happening was I was very engrossed in what I was doing outside of being a parent, and still incorporating school and parenting and all those things that often, women find themselves in that situation when they're transitioning, thinking, will I return to the workforce? I've just become more active in my community within my school. So then that day came when David said, why don't you come into the practice? And I said, well, I don't really have dental background. What would I do? And David said to me, he said, well, you love talking, don't you? And I said, oh, I sure do. I love having conversations with people and building rapport with them and making them feel good. So he said, well, just come into the practice and do that. So it was an official schmoozer that I sort of went in. It filled a niche that, from an administration point of view, and most, frontline businesses, they can't actually deliver often that customer service unless they have designated people that are qualified and trained to be able to do that. So anyway, that's what I did. So I went into the practice, started talking to patients, finding out a little bit more about them. Anyway, one thing led to another, and the role became a little bit more involved when the two girls that answered the phone in the dental practice were off sick one day. And so that was my role all of a sudden. And I thought, well, I can answer a phone. How hard is that?
Right. How hard can that be?
I think my mission at the practice was to try and make the least amount of appointments as possible, not make any ongoing appointments, even though everyone seemed to be happy. But that wasn't a good goal to be working towards. So, so the role opened up for me.
And that's where you saw an opportunity?
Yeah, but I think it was always came back to customer service. I always realised every other role in the practice needed to be the whole customer service needed to be packaged up into it. That should have been our main driver with every interaction and communication with the patients. And it was a really good point that you made, John, about all the websites are the same for dental. We all basically do the same stuff, don't we? We fix people's teeth and solve their problems. But what was that point of difference for us? So we had to really differentiate ourselves. And I think that was the game changer for us. And the differential that we believe would make the biggest difference was to give them an experience, because who likes going to the dentist?
Right. No one. Right.
No.
So here's where I want to get into it, because this is what you wrote in your book, How to Build the Dental Practice of Your Dreams, which you could throw out the word dental, and you could just replace how to build the business of your dreams, because everything you talk about applies to almost every other. And so what were some of the things that you implemented that were truly unique that I wouldn't experience, or your patients didn't experience, not only at another dental office, they didn't experience at a hair salon, they didn't experience at the restaurant. You guys created some fantastic, simple systems that allowed you to just wow your patients. Please share them.
Well, John, when I met you, it was like the penny dropped that we were doing customer service, but we really had no system. So the 10 commandments that you applied to customer service, we then took that and developed the systems within our practice to look at every step, every touch point that the patient went through along their journey at the dental practice, and work out what were our operational standards, what were our experiential standards, what were our service defects, how were we going to do service recovery, and what were our above and beyond opportunities for each step. And in then setting that out with our team, because we knew we were doing good customer service, but it was very random. But we knew that we were still doing things above and beyond what people were getting at the dental practice. So a couple of things that we brought from outside of dentistry in: the hot towel that you get when you fly, first class, or you go to a Chinese restaurant. Most dentists, they just give patients the dirty bib that's been across their chest to wipe their face with. And so we said, well, let's get the hot towels. We can buy them from a food supplier, Chinese food supplier, in plastic bags, and then we just pop them in a microwave. And everyone, as soon as we started giving them out, people would go, "What's that? What's that for?" I said, just a hot towel, and you give it to them, and they put it on their face, and it's exactly the same as in first class. It's a mood changer straight away,
and they're not expecting it, and so it's a nice gift to give them, isn't it? It's something they're not expecting. It sort of.
Now, what about Jayne? When you, the schmoozer concierge, would find out something about the patient, how would you communicate? So now the doctor, the technician could act on that, what we call customer intelligence, secret service, all the things we called it.
Yeah, the little secrets, isn't it?
Yeah.
The thing that you find out. And sometimes that interaction goes back and forth as well. They sometimes know about you as well. But yeah, no, that was really important. And more important was making sure that we recorded that somehow, so that all of the team, it wasn't just you that knew it, the whole team,
right,
the doctors, everyone knew what was happening with those patients, and little details that basically we were able to incorporate into conversations with the patient. And it showed that we were paying attention. We were acknowledging them, making them feel important.
Even though I've only been here once and it's been 6-8 months ago, you remembered all this stuff that I have 3 boys, or that what I do for a living. Did you do that in your CRM system? How did you let Dr. Dave know about the patient? Like, what did you do to make sure that it wasn't just you?
Yeah, it was always recorded, obviously, in patient information. So we put that there. But we'd also have some team meetings, and we'd have morning huddles before we started. So when a patient was coming in, those notes were brought up and it was discussed. So it wasn't just a discussion about clinical. It was a discussion about the person, because when you think about it, a customer, or let's say our patients, they're more than just their teeth and their mouth. It's about the person. That's the customer, the patient that comes to see us, and they come to have their dental treatment done. It's a sort of, by the way, that's the more important part, is getting to know them. So
no, I love that. I love what you guys did. You've done so many things, and you're right. I come in a different dental patient experience. Typical might be is, I've been coming here for years, since I was a kid or whatever it may be. But now he's asking me things that he's asked me 15 times before. John, I forget, do you have kids? John, it's like, really? And listen, realistically, none of us have that brain power to remember all this stuff, but you guys found ways to collect it, share it, and then make your patients feel like a VIP because, you'd magically remember my vacation last year or that I work at an insurance company or whatever it was. And that's really the power of what you did is, the systematizing it that everyone could take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Well, it is. And it's being able to be there for your patients when they have experiences as well, John, that they don't expect that you've had that experience. I can remember we had one patient and he rang very close to his appointment and said, look, I've just got to cancel it. I can't talk now. I'll ring back, which was totally unlike him. And we go, oh, something's obviously gone wrong. And we found out that his son's wife had just got news that they were having a stillborn baby. And so we reached out to Peter, our patient, and his wife, Dorothy, the expectant grandmother. And we said, we've been through that experience ourselves. So any time that you want to have a talk about it. And so Peter had come back in and fixed up his appointment and whatever. And when Dorothy came in, and Dorothy was talking to Jayne one time, and she just stopped in mid-sentence and she just said, it just hit me. She said, you're not our dentists. You're our friends.
Wow.
And so our relationship always went deeper than just being them being our patients. And
I think we've noticed that too, John, since we've stepped away from our practice, because now we're doing, full-time coaching, is that the connections that we made with our patients, they've still stayed. It's amazing how many patients are communicating with us through social media.
Through social media, yeah.
And there'll be little posts that we'll put about dental, and all of a sudden our patients will pop up and confirm that, these guys know what they're doing, which is great for us. And I think we felt that we missed them because we'd made them such a big part of our lives.
I think just, you guys know this just as much as how you were making them feel, right? You were feeling that as well. You were going home. Your soul was enriched, right? You had built relationships. It wasn't a one-sided relationship where they were only feeling better. You were feeling better. It wasn't that you were looking at 10 or 25, sets of teeth today, right? It's 25 relationships that you were rekindling every time.
Yeah, it really was a win-win. Because that's a really good point you make, John, because from a coaching experience, I work with a lot of young teams and mostly young women because they're the ones that are drawn stereotypically to these roles of front office in medical. And, some of them, it's when you see the penny drop and they go, oh, now I understand why I'm doing this, what benefit that has not only to the people that I'm serving, the people that I'm looking after, but also to myself. So they get a much better quality experience themselves in the workplace as well. And so they're always going to give more when they're feeling that too. So, that's
Love that.
been really important.
But John, just closing the loop here and just getting back to that point of difference, after I'd met you and I've learned the customer service revolution and building out the customer experience cycle. And we did that in dentistry and realized that we had 3 cycles. Patients came for 3 reasons. So we had to have 3 different cycles. And we set the team down to define each of their stages that they worked in, because the dentist only worked in greeting the patient, seeing the patient, and farewelling the patient. Yet there were so many other steps and stages. When we got the team doing this, and reporting back, and it took about 6 months to really work it out for all those steps and stages. But what we found was it was so much fun. It was fun for the team to do it. Team members who had the same roles, they wouldn't work on one stage together. They'd work on one stage each. And so when one reported back, the other one would say, I didn't know you were doing that. I didn't know you were doing that. So they grew knowledge amongst themselves. Plus other people in the business didn't know what was being done at other stages. So they said, if you're doing that, then I can do this. But the best part about each of those meetings was some of them, we would finish those meetings in tears of laughter. Like some of the ideas people were coming up with were just hilarious. We were going out on tangents and the building of it was so much fun, but it was also empowering to the team that they created the cycles and they created the ultimate patient experience. Wasn't something that we created. They owned it.
Yeah.
Maybe we steered them where we wanted them to go, but they were coming back with their operational standards, their experiential standards, and their above and beyonds. And we'd say, no, that's not really an experiential standard. That's an above and beyond. And so they go, oh, okay.
And team members surprised us too.
Oh, yeah, we had one.
Got surprised by the quiet team members that you don't hear a lot from. They're doing a great job, but all of a sudden they were blossoming, weren't they? They were like piping up and speaking and giving really creative
ideas.
Gave
them permission to behave like this, where it wasn't because you didn't in the past, but maybe in the previous jobs they never were allowed, and now you're celebrating that behavior.
Have you ever considered being your own boss in a customer service career? If coaching businesses to service excellence excites you, CX Coaching may be the opportunity you've been dreaming about. Visit cxcoaching.com for more information.
So here's the thing. Here, if you're listening, and there's people listening in the medical field, in professional services, and this is great so far, but there's a but. Okay, so let's talk about you feel better. You're making your patients more loyal. You guys are going home. Your team is buying in. They're getting joy, which the benefits everyone, and a workplace culture and lack of turnover. Okay, that's all well and good, but we have people thinking right now, how does it affect the bottom line? It's just warm and fuzzy. And I believe, shortly after that, or not shortly, but you were able to sell your businesses, your dental practices, and do quite well from it. And then you moved on to your next career. So there was a good financial implication. Not that was your only agenda, not that was your primary agenda, but oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure it worked out pretty well in that category too.
Well, it did. End result, we were able to sell very successfully, but we really did enjoy the fact that the people weren't coming for the dentistry. They were coming for the relationships. I've forgotten the lady's name. Remember, she sent a daughter and then she had her dentistry done, but she would come every 2 weeks to buy some special mouthwash because she had some periodontal issues. Her visit to buy the mouthwash was an hour. It's not to see us, just to see Jayne and show her things and photos and all sorts of
biscuits.
And so the relationships that our patients, our really good patients had with us was it went beyond just the dentistry. It was a true friendship.
But I think John made a good point there about the fact that how did that affect our bottom line? And we were seeing shifts. Like, we've made a decision that it feels better to offer the customer experience to our patients. It feels better. Everyone's feeling happier. But again, from a business perspective, how does that affect the bottom line? So we did start looking at those shifts, and we saw it. And at one stage it was like maybe accidentally, like we saw, there's a bit of a change now because we were measuring. We then brought in lots of metrics. We were looking at, those new patient phone calls that were coming in. How many were being converted to new patient appointments? Because we were offering customer service, not when the patient arrived at the practice, but before that, on that first telephone call. So we realised we made that transition, that was an eye-opener for us, that was the goal too. But yeah, those metrics and being able to see those changes, and then we started to build our business so we could see the dollar amount that was matching the patient experience. And I suppose it's one of those grey areas. Is that where the increase in say production of your business, is that where it's coming from? But we definitely did see a transition and a shift at that point.
Which made your practice more attractive to, someone else who ends up buying it. And now, you don't ride off in the sunset. You become a sought after speaker, Doc, and you start speaking and coaching. And this is where Jayne gets more involved. And Jayne, I think initially, from what I know about you, you didn't want to be a public speaker. You didn't see yourself as a public speaker. In fact, your first speaking opportunity was
at my dad's funeral.
You gave the eulogy, right?
I thought, gosh, if I can walk past Dad, go and deliver the eulogy. A little bit different to how I presented.
Right.
it gave
So
me
that you
courage.
start speaking on the part of business you know so well, which is dental phone excellence and how to make that part of an experience. And what Dr. Dave, the smartest thing he ever did was he figured, well, besides marrying you, the second smartest thing he did was he realized you were probably going to put him out of business if he didn't make you a partner of the business. So now he brings you in and you guys start coaching the ultimate patient experience, and you're a tandem duo in the medical profession. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think one of the very well-known dentists in America, who is also a coach and a consultant, once referred to us as Batman and Robin
Yeah.
of dental. So I thought that was an interesting title to be given. But yeah,
well, it was, because although, and I think dentistry separates into clinical and non-clinical, but we've mastered different parts of the non-clinical. And again, although Jayne was originally just starting to train people on how to answer the phone, she found that when she was listening to phone calls, she was hearing problems. The cancellations weren't caused on the phone. The cancellations were caused by confusion created by lack of clarity at the previous appointment. And so that's a communication issue in the customer service thing. You know, everybody should leave with that clear next step. And if we're not giving them that clear next step, they ring up and cancel because they don't think it's important. And I used to say, it's like soccer goalkeepers. You know, you could be the best soccer goalkeeper in the world, but if you've got Manchester United just banging goals at you, you're going to get worn out really quick and say, this isn't fun anymore. And if you're good on the phone, but people keep ringing up to cancel because of not anything you've done, you're going to get frustrated with it. And they're canceling because of that lack of confusion. So again, when we built out the customer experience cycles, you know, we put in 6 steps after they leave the treatment room before they get out the front door to make sure that the handovers were perfect, so that there was no, you know, what's going to happen next time. That's set by the dentist. When does he want to do it? That's set by the dentist to create the urgency. And what will happen if they don't get it done in that time frame? That creates that fear of loss or, you know, damage or pain. But those things aren't, you know, the computerization has been dreadful in that sort of thing, because the dentist just writes it in the computer and the front desk receptionist reads it off the computer, and there's no verbal handover, John, and they lose that urgency. I saw that at a practice and I thought, this is crazy. This guy's a specialist, and half the people are walking out without appointments, and they've got to try and reactivate them. And it's because they're not committing to that communication. You know, for $20 an hour, they could have somebody just there to walk them out, and they would not be losing thousands of dollars walking out the door every hour.
But I think what we found was, in most dental practices, their belief is that they're doing okay, and really they only know what they know. Don't we? That's like everyone. We only know what we know, and once we know more, we realise that we didn't know that much after all. So what we found in our coaching business, and especially listening to phone calls, is we see the missing part. All of a sudden, it's like, aha, you know, that's the missing part. Now we know what's missing, and now we can provide them with that missing part that links everything up that they've been hopping over and has been affecting everything else.
And
So
you guys were so brilliant that a lot of people struggle with is you looked outside the dental industry, got great ideas and implement them, where some people will say, well, that's all well and good, but we're not a hair salon, right? Or we're not a restaurant. And if you really think about it, the dental cycle, as you say, is the exact same for a restaurant. It's the exact same for a hair salon. It's you call up and make an appointment. You walk in and get greeted. You get taken back. You see the hairdresser, waitress, dentist, whatever it is. That experience, then you check out, right? And then you know, we all hold our breath that we come back. So there's so many similarities. And 2 things that really struck me. You've heard this ad nauseum. You help people with this. Knowing what a day in the life of your customer is. And we all forget. And something I learned being a patient that was a hard lesson for me is I'm sitting there, as you know, and, you know, I've asked dentists this. I'm like, what's one of the most important things that, you know, have to be the cleanest in your room? And instruments. Well, yes, but what else? The floor that I'm staring at your ceiling for 45 minutes. And so in my dentist, I see a cracked screen. I see dead bugs on that plastic screen. And that's what I'm staring. And you know what? The first thing I did is I run back to my salon when I was in the salons. I get a massage and I'm staring at the ceiling and I see that I hope the heat or air conditioning doesn't kick on because there's an inch layer of dust that hasn't been, but we don't look at that. And the other thing that really, was an aha to me, and you've talked about this, is anticipating your customers or your patients' needs. So I remember I have an appointment at a dentist, and I think I have to get some, work done on my teeth. And it was around 11:30, and I get the work done, cavity or whatever it is. All right, so doc, now I get the work done. You fill a cavity. How long before I can eat on that side or at all? About how long?
Usually we would say a couple of hours and, make sure the feelings come back so you don't.
100%. So that's what I hear, right? Now, on my way to the dentist, all I'm thinking about is how hungry I am. I can't wait. As soon as this appointment's done, I'm running to the nearest whatever. Now you've just told me at 12:15, you can't eat for the next 2 hours. My dentist tells me that. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't even think I can make it to my car. I'm going to fall. Now you're telling me I can't eat for 2 more hours. I put that back on the dentist. I put that back on all our businesses saying, listen, if you're coming around this time or anytime you're coming, understand for this thing, you're not going to be able to eat for 2 hours. So make sure you eat before, or you're okay with not eating until after. And those are things that as people that, maybe do that once, hopefully every 5 years have the procedure done like that, we don't think like that. So those are all things I know you broken down and discovered and helped. And that's what made your dental practice, that's what makes your coaching practice so incredible. And so, in 2021, a little bit more than a year ago, we launched our new brand called CX Coaching, Customer Experience Coaching, where we've licensed brilliant coaches all over the world to teach our methodology. And you and Jayne were in our inaugural class, and now our licensed customer experience coaches that you are helping clients in all industries do this for them. Is there any parallels that you see that are related to the first industry that you mastered, dental?
Well, I think one of the beauties of working with you and building our dental coaching, John, was the fact that we could, you've often heard the phrase, our clients are our greatest resource. Well, other industries are often our greatest resource. So, the hot towel from the Chinese food. The other one, which we learned from you, was the restaurant table seating arrangement. Who's sitting who made the booking? Are they regulars? Who's got the special occasion? And we used that to apply to our dental client lounge, which used to be called the waiting room. Like, who's sitting where, assign them a seat, and then we know, instead of having to go out and call a name like we're calling a boat in on a paddle,
right.
We could walk straight to that person and say, Mrs. Smith's here for her next appointment. She's sitting in seat number 4 and she's wearing a red cardigan. So the dental assistant will walk straight to her. And then that's a little wow factor, because they're used to somebody just calling out their name and having to get up really quickly. And now somebody's come out and taken their time and the way they greeted them. The other one, which in dentistry, you can get really focused as a dentist on doing what you're doing inside the mouth and forget the person's name. And because you've got loops on, you can't read their name on the computer. And, you think, was it Bob or Bill? And so we took a Post-it note and stuck it on their shoulder on the bib, and they couldn't see it. And it'd have their name on it. And so every patient would come in and with a Post-it note would be ready, and I'd just go pat them on the shoulder as the chair's going back and say, all right, we're off we go now. And every time they had to get up to have a rinse, I'd peel it off and then I'd put it back. Are you feeling okay? And so when you came to us and said that you were looking for people to become CX coaches, we thought, this is great. This is our opportunity to give back and go full circle, because there are so many principles. And as you've said, and so many others from outside of dentistry have said, is that if we can turn a grudge buy like dentistry into an experience and have people wanting to come to the dentist and wanting to cancel less, imagine what we can do in in advising businesses where their customers actually do look forward to coming and we can improve. Because I think CX coaching is really not about helping bad businesses get to average. It's about helping good businesses get to great. They know that they this is what they want. They just don't know the methodology of doing it. And so, again, if we've applied that methodology in dentistry and then we take the framework of CX coaching, it's easy in other industries. And that appealed to us as well, because you can get very boring in your own lane. And working from home as well can get very boring as well in your own lane. So it's nice to have that opportunity to get back into the industries that we know as consumers, like food and beverage, hospitality, and travel. And again, that's where we get a lot of our stories that we say, this happened on a plane. How does this apply to dentistry? This happened at a restaurant. How does this apply to dentistry? Well, now we can do it the other way around. We can flip them back.
And I want to revisit something we talked about earlier that I mentioned is both of your commitments to professional development, education, getting on a plane, flying 24 hours, constantly coming to the U.S. There's nothing you won't stop. Well, when we did CX coaching, the coaches camp was 4 days in a row in Cleveland. And most of the coaches came in, but because Australia was locked down, you couldn't come in. So most people probably think, all right, he waited till the next coaches camp, or him and Jayne waited. No. You guys attended all 4 days, which your time is 1 a.m. to, well, what is your time? Our 9 to 5 or 9 to 6?
Yeah, it was 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. our time. So
every day for 4 days. And then every quarter we have a coach's update. And 1 day a quarter, you're on it. And it's so funny. We just had one last week and reviewing the surveys that the coaches gave on the class. And I didn't know who wrote this until I read it. It said, the only thing I'd suggest is if maybe we can have, I think we had a 45-minute lunch. So maybe if we could, have an hour lunch so I can get my a full hour nap in. And I knew exactly who that was. It's just an amazing tribute. Listen, a lot of people, haven't accomplished half of what you accomplished and think they know it all. But you both have built an amazing business, sold it, now are authors and successful business coaches, and you're just nonstop relentless people who are just constantly educating yourselves, and you've been really great role models. I want to make sure I don't miss a couple of things that I know are near and dear to your heart. I believe you love red wine, right?
Yeah.
I remember that. And I don't know for both of you, but you love your Kiss. What do you call the people that love Kiss and follow them all over besides groupies?
Kiss Army.
The Kiss Army.
The Kiss Army. Yes, Jayne, do you share that? Well, I know you share the red wine passion.
Well, I do now.
Okay.
Being married to someone who is part of the Kiss Army it's a deal breaker if you're not going to.
Well, I've got to tell you a little surprise that I did for Jayne with relation to Kiss. I got invited to speak to the Danish Dental Association in Copenhagen, and I said I travel with my wife, and so they flew both of us over, and then, unbeknownst to Jayne, I noticed that Kiss were starting a world tour in Leningrad, in St. Petersburg. Yeah. And I contacted a Russian Australian dentist and said, can you tell me what this website says, how to book a ticket? She goes, oh, David, I wouldn't go to that part of St. Petersburg. And I said, well, what do I do? I said, well, 2 days later, they're in Helsinki. And I said, all right. So I said to Jayne, while we're in Copenhagen, why don't we go to Stockholm and then Helsinki, have a look? We've not been there before.
That's right.
And so I didn't tell her that Kiss were playing. So we spoke in Copenhagen. We went to Stockholm, and we're sitting in Stockholm having lunch out on the because it's built around islands. And I said, Jayne, there's a reason why we're going to Helsinki. And she said, what's that? I said, Kiss are playing and we have tickets. And
no, you actually said, darling, I think there's something I need to tell you.
That's right. I said,
we're in Copenhagen. I'm thinking,
no, in Stockholm.
And I thought, is this good or bad?
So she said, oh, I don't want to go to that. I said, no, well, they're meet and greet tickets. So she actually got to talk with Gene Simmons for maybe 5 minutes because everybody did was and so he liked to speak to somebody who was
Well, he was
Australian.
sharing some things on his phone, which scared me straight away because I thought, what's going to be on Gene Simmons' telephone that I probably don't want to see, maybe.
Right.
It was, and I thought it was cute because he had a kiss.
So have you come around, Jayne? Are you a Kiss?
I have.
The Kiss Army?
Yeah, and the 2 children have come around too, so we're all part of the Kiss Army.
How many concerts have you seen, Doc, of Kiss?
I've seen close to 15, and we've been on. I've been on 4 Kiss cruises, and Jayne's been on 2 of them as well. So I think the one that got Jayne on was because they were going to Mexico, and she could go and see some ruins that she studied in art.
Yeah.
But this April 1, Kiss are playing in Sydney, and I'm taking our 2 adult children as well as Jayne for a meet and greet because it'll be their last opportunity. I don't think Gene and Paul are going to be like Gene's 72. He said he's got to put on all that weight of armor every night. He said if he was in Dire Straits, he could go forever, but it's the weight of the suit.
They really are performers. Like even if you're not a big Kiss
they're
fan,
an experience. They're an experience.
Absolutely, and I think they're the masters of the customer experience because they got that.
That's what attracted them to me. The first time I saw them in '96, so I'm a late discoverer. I did have Kiss Alive, but I never seen them live. I thought I got to see these guys, and I thought after seeing it, I thought this is a show that they everything was choreographed to deliver an experience for the
it's
person.
all about us.
I didn't have a ticket. I went there. I bought from a scalper. I got 10 rows from the front, and I was surprised at how much detail went into the show. And I thought these guys know what to do. I was expecting just drugged out old rockers.
Right.
But they weren't like that at all. It was so specific.
It makes sense because everything in your life is themed around experiences, giving them, experiencing them. You guys have added so much value. When your names get mentioned at the DiJulius group, everyone lights up. Everyone loves Dr. Dave and his wife, Jayne. In the show notes, there are links of how to connect on LinkedIn, how to contact them, their website, and a link to Dr. David's book, How to Build the Dentist Practice of Your Dreams, as well as a link to their website and their CX coaches. If you're looking to take your business to the next level and make the experience you deliver to both of your team and your customers your biggest competitive advantage, you need to be talking to Dr. Dave and Jayne, wonderful CX coaches. Thank you so much. The past 12 years, you guys have really, really given me so much pleasure and kind of what you did for your patients. Every time I see you, whether it's virtually or it's been too long, but in person, it's just so rewarding for me. I can't thank both of you enough.
Thank you, John. It has been a pleasure being part of your business and a pleasure being your friend as well. We really appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure talking to you today as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. It's been good.
Okay, thank you, Revolutionaries, for another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. And we will see you next week.
We appreciate your reviews. Please be sure to share your comments and let us know what you're enjoying most on the podcast. And to hear more episodes, be sure to subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and being part of the Customer Service Revolution.